Oh, I see it. Exciting. Yay. Hi,
Yay!
Tatianna. We have been through it. We really wanted to deliver you this Leo new moon message, and it's
hmm
here. I am the Voluptuous Witch, and I'm so excited to be here with Tatianna Tarot.
Hi, everybody. We're so stoked to finally tune in with you guys. It's been a brewing process, but we finally have this on lock,
Yes.
hopefully.
And we're going to deliver you some Astro and Tarot message blends that will get your week right. And it's an exciting week. As
hmm
we have new moon, we have a Leo new moon that was early this morning, very early this morning. And we were just talking about how the Leo energy is really what is dominating right now, because we have the sun that just moved into Leo, moon in Leo, Mercury in Leo, Mars in Leo,
Everything
North
in Leo.
Node has been hanging out in Leo.
Everything has been in Leo, sweet Lord.
So we're shifting, we're making a big shift from Cancer season and a lot of watery energy. I know we were feeling it, yes.
Perfect timing.
And
Mhm.
all love to our cancers, all love to all the cancers. I hope you had wonderful birthdays. It felt like a very emotional cancer season. Would you say that is true, Tatiana?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. My fiance is a Cancer, so girl, I felt it. Yeah. But I also feel like on a personal note, I don't know, and I always associate this with Cancer too, is that I felt like a lot, like my intuition was on an all-time high during that time. And my readings were just furthermore on point. And I just felt like I was in this flow of trusting myself and trusting my own juju, which is usually the case, but even more so during that period. So that was really exciting. Aside from the emotional aspect, which, can be a drag sometimes, that was really more of like the pivotal point of that time.
I love that though. I feel like that's actually really important to mention, because I think sometimes we can feel like emotions are in the way or there's something extra to deal with. And
hmm
really, they are powerful. Like times when we are in this, I know for me that's also true. Like I've been in a lot of really deep healing, but the awarenesses, the insights, it adds so much empathy, so much compassion. Like it's been really actually exciting also for me in this time to connect with people, because it's been deep, and I really appreciate when that's the mood actually, when that's the vibe. Maybe it's all the Scorpio in my chart, but I like it when it's like time to go
hmm
deep, in a way. So I feel like, yeah, we've all been in some form of that. And it kind of makes sense to me if I think of it in that way, because I'm feeling this Leo season as being about really moving from our heart. Leo rules the heart. Leo is about moving from our own rhythm, the spark, like our own fire, our own inner fire. And so I think that emotional processing and emotional clarity of Cancer season is maybe what kind of has cleared the way for us to really do that, to really live from some of our fire. And so this week coming up, we have this beautiful new moon energy. And the most important thing to know is that we have a Leo new moon, and then we're going to have two Leo new moons. So we have the next month's new moon is a blue moon. So it's the second in the sign of Leo for the year, and it's a solar eclipse. So this new moon is kind of like, and of course we know, the sun rules Leo. Leo is a very sun connected sign. So having this Leo new moon at the time of solar eclipse, second new moon in a row, Leo new moon in a row, where Leo energy is important right now. So the way we can really tap into that is setting really heart-centered intentions,
hmm
and then accessing things like loyalty, glamour, performance, like being seen, getting out there, and expression. Like Leo is really about true expression, and self-expression. It can be a little self-centered, a little prideful. There, all the signs have their mix.
I was just gonna say every sign has its pros and cons, so
Yes. And so what we're going to look at is just that for this week in particular, for this week of July 23rd, we have this balance of this really expansive, like go big, beautiful, bright Leo energy. And then we have a couple tricky aspects. We have Jupiter tightly squaring Pluto, and we have Venus opposing Saturn. And these influences are a little bit more like authoritarian, like what are some of the actual rules or limits or structures, things that we need to learn to flow with or participate with to get into that place of maximum expression. So it's like there's this rush of fire and expression, and then maybe also some element of like reality check. And then it's like, how do we work with that when we come across roadblocks or limitations? How do we work with that? So we are going to also see what the cards have to say.
and that's where I come in and help us get some more insight on these limitations and how we can utilize our gifts that we already have to the best benefit without just necessarily getting stuck in the way due to these astrological influences. So it'll be really, really exciting to see what's in store.
Definitely, because Leo essentially has the capacity to really move with grace. You know, Leo is the queen, Leo is the king. And so the queen
Mhm.
and king don't need to scramble for power, they have it already. And so when challenges arise, it's like, how does that look when you come from a place of like innate worthiness and from deep inner power, and where you know that you're going to succeed through the challenge, you know, like as opposed to being in a place of fear. So as soon as we expand, we can almost know for certain that, you know, a challenge will come up. That can be, what do you think? I mean, to me, I think of that as sometimes as being a test, like how much do you really want this? How do you kind of think of that?
I mean, I think challenges are inevitable, but then I find it's like you're meeting yourself halfway. So you're just encountering some sort of subconscious limitation that you have that's now coming up that you have to confront in order to actualize this great vision of yourself. So it's like you've been confined in this container this whole time, but now that you're willing to expand, what are you willing to do to really push the boundaries, overboard, so that you have all this space and you recognize, your full potential. So it's very much along the same lines as perceiving it. But
I
this is
love that.
interesting because like what we were communicating earlier is, we perceive this Leo energy as this ferocious, graceful, loving, heart-centered energy, and yet it's very positive. We have this positive dynamic happening with all these Leo influences, but at the same time we have like these womp womps along the way that are going to put us in check and help us ground ourselves a little bit further. So it's really about getting the duality in balance, and putting a better perspective on things so that we can best lead ourselves with this at this time.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And also because we have Mars so tightly conjoining this new moon, we have a lot of power. So it's
Mhm.
important for us to remember this just gives us that added boost of power to face challenges head on. And also, I love what you're speaking to, because I think Leo is so much about shining, like letting ourselves shine. And so when we go into a space of needing to do that, a lot of times I think it is true that the challenges that come up kind of come from us, like from the limitations we put on ourselves, so I think that I love what you said, and I feel like it's so relevant. And so to definitely remember, we have so much on our side, and clearly this whole setup, this whole lead up to next month's solar eclipse, like really wants us to shine. Like we
Mhm.
have this energy, like that's what we're being pushed to do. And of course, depending on sign, there's always more detail we can go into, but the overall astrological landscape is really looking like that. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious. I would love to hear. So what do you have you pulled any cards yet?
I
What do you
have yet to pull cards because I usually just do it on the
it's
spot. I'm already getting jittery and also a little challenging having an 8-month woman on this chair. I'm slipping and sliding. But also, okay, so we were discussing a little bit of this prior to recording the video, and we were thinking, okay, well, how can the tarot best consult us on these changes? You know, what's the approach we need to take essentially? And I thought it would be best to kind of ask, what are the limitations that we can expect for this week? Because on a personal note, I would rather just be a little savvy on something that I might be oblivious to, you know, especially I have a lot of Leo in my chart. So, you know, we can have the tendency of believing and just acting that everything is just going to fall into place. You know, I have the power to, you know, conquer everything, which is true. We do. But at the same time, when you know better, when you're better prepared, then that gives you the tools to really overcome these things and just makes you a well-rounded person. So we're going to consult the tarot and see for this week, based on the information that we heard, what are the limitations that we can expect arising within ourselves that we need to confront or just be mindful of in order to actualize our best path, our most aligned path, or actualize our greatness. I really like using that. So Spirit, give us a clear message on our limitations for this week with everything that's coming up. Okay, and I'm feeling this card here. Oy vey, it's so dramatic.
I mean, Leo brings the drama, so let's just get into it.
Right? And so the 10 of Swords, a lot of people look at this card and they're like, oh my freaking goodness, am I going to die? No, but it's very, very, very similar to the concept of death, where there is inherently a release going on. So we see 10 swords. This is the 10 of Swords for those that are not mindful of this whole tarot lingo. And swords, essentially, they pertain to the element of air, the mind. So this is a time where we don't want to be over rational. At least this is what this card is saying. This is a time where we want to kind of marinate on, you know, how our thoughts and our perceptions of ourselves are kind of killing us in some way, or narrowing and limiting our own sense of self-expansion or the potential of which we can grow into. They say, you know, when you identify or you label yourself, you confine yourself to that little narrow, I guess, kind of constructs. You know, you label yourself and you confine yourself to that little identity, and so you don't really have the space or the outlet to become something much more greater than you can ever envision. And this card is kind of communicating that. This is communicating a sense of release. All these swords stabbing the individual is killing the physical body, but it's also allowing the reality, which is the spirit, to arise from the body and really take charge, really take initiative. So we want to lead with our hearts. Heart-based meditation is also based on spirit meditation. And what that is in a nutshell, I would say, is what do you resonate with? You know, rather than trying to marinate on your thoughts excessively or figuring out the pros and cons, which can be very beneficial in this particular circumstance within this week, you want to feel it out. What feels good for you? What resonates with you? What sticks? What is your personal truth? And that could be a limitation, especially if you're obsessive, you're OCD about something, you can't let something go, or the past is arising and it's limiting you because you're basing yourself off of it, or you're basing your future off of it, or you're expecting that past to re-manifest again. So that's something that you very much want to be mindful of, especially this card can come with a lot of, when I see this card, I would recommend people to cleanse whether it's drinking excessive amount of water, whether it's writing your true intentions and your emotions in a journal, dancing, physical movement allows the energy in your body to move and release itself, expressing yourself to a friend, doing a variety of artistic, creative projects that will allow you to kind of tap into other aspects of yourself that are kind of hidden. Definitely also what's limiting you may be that you're repeating some sort of karmic cycle that you can't get out of. And that's just something that kind of came in with this card, because this can represent the end and the closure to a chapter in your life. And if you're seeking to kind of, I would say not seeking, but assess what's been going on in your life, assess the karmic patterns and the cycles that have been perpetuating up to this point, and see, where your spirit is kind of yearning for you to go within this next week, what the transition is, what you need to do to change and step away from that particular pattern. Something has to end, most definitely. And like I said, it's not a literal death, but it's kind of like a let go, let God situation, cleansing, of course, writing things down and burying them or burning them. Things in the case of what you want to release is a good ritual as well for this. So that is what the limitations are. Now let's see our best asset that we have that we should be bringing out more of this week, especially with all this Leo energy. Spirit, what is it that we have inside of ourselves that we carry that we need to let shine, that can help us win through life, be used for our best benefit? And I want to use this card. Wow, a lot of swords cards. This is interesting because we're going from the 10 of swords to the 9 of swords. Now, this can be tricky because this inherently isn't the most positive of cards. If you look at the illustration, it's a guy who's going through some internal turmoil. He has a lot on his brain. He has a lot to marinate on, but also there is this sense of repetition. There is this sense of, I can't let things go. I'm going to worry. I have a lot of anxiety of it. So we can use this to our best advantage, and in the sense of, this is kind of telling me, and now how do I phrase it? Excuse me. It's kind of telling me in some way, even though this looks scary, that a lot that's been on our minds that maybe we've been holding back on, whether it's us procrastinating, and excuse me, this is my selenite wand. Looks like I have a third boob. What we've been procrastinating on looks like we'll be able to tackle a lot of these agendas and projects within this week. So a lot of this stuff that's been marinating that you've been worried about, or maybe, just putting on the back burner, you can utilize all this Leo energy in a positive direction to get it done, to make yourself feel very confident and courageous and just more enthusiastic about your personal accomplishments. Any little thing helps in this scenario. So this may be the situation with the 9 of Swords where, all right, someone has just been, feeling a lack of confidence, or feeling incompetent, or just feeling, disorganized. And so all this stuff is piling up and it's keeping them awake at night because they're like, how the hell am I going to address my life? Just things are getting out of hand. With this extra energy, I feel like already I have a boost of energy to just finish a bunch of content work, get myself into the week. Use this to get one step ahead, even if it's a small step. Any little thing goes a long way. And so, I don't like to see these cards as a positive or negative situation because they have both aspects in them. Definitely look to see the pro in why you're having, this anxiety. And okay, maybe my spirit's telling me it's time to work. Maybe it's time for me to, stop feeling sorry for myself and stop thinking that I can't get it done. Any little thing really does help you out this week. So That's really cool.
I love that. I love everything you
Yeah.
shared so much, and especially the perspective even on the Ten of Swords about the spirit rising. That is so beautiful, and I have never like heard that card, like an interpretation of that card described in that way. And I feel like that is so relevant because the reality is, eclipse season, we're about to come into eclipse season. Eclipse seasons are times of rapid change, and rapid change can involve endings. It involves endings, closure, and sometimes when we're in an endings stage, we can be like just consumed with worry. Um,
Hmm.
and it can be easy to miss that sometimes, that often, or you could even say always, things are ending because we have another step to take. We can't take everything with us into that next evolution of ourselves. It all can't come with us, and so the load will lighten. Some things will fall away. um, and so it makes a lot of sense to me to see those cards come up, because it's like we can be our best advocates and move really positively, and with a lot of like self-loving self-belief. It really feels like a really important week for self-love, and I know that word gets thrown around a
It
lot.
is needed. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really like the catalyst to everything else in our lives, without proper self-love, without having that foundation, everything else crumbles.
definitely. And I feel like that lovingness toward ourselves helps us take action when sometimes we think that it's more like the Nine of Swords, like, oh, I'll just keep beating up on myself and then I'll get the stuff done. And then actually, so often it's really when we can take a loving attitude toward ourselves and be like, you know what? It makes sense. It took me a while to start that for this and this reason. I totally get it. Like, how would you talk to a friend? You'd be like, I get it. I feel you. And also, you can do it, so go
Right.
do it. Like, it's
Right.
like a more loving sort of like, how am I
Yeah.
get myself into action? Will I do it like with the whip or with love?
Right. And also, like, why does it have to all be done right now? Nine swords isn't necessarily realistic. Or, I mean, it can be to people who are, just doers 24/7. But you need to ask yourself, who am I really getting this work done for? If it's really myself, it should be a playful, enjoyable
Mm.
experience. We think about working hard, or we're thinking about accomplishment as something really dragging, like dragging your nails on the chalkboard and just like being an awful, awful time spent, when it should be much more, enjoyable. I mean, these are the lives, like the minutes to your life that you need to take advantage of. And if you're going to be doing it for yourself, then make sure that it's going to be a positive experience for yourself. Don't dread it. And if you're going to dread it, then maybe you need to take a break. Maybe that's your spirit saying, all right, move on to the next thing. But what was really interesting, real quick, is that the cards were all swords, and that's air, and Leo is fire. And when you get air and fire, woo, you just get more of a fiery combustion going on.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the fire wants the air. The air feeds
yeah,
it. That's exactly what
and
it
air is intellectual. Air is Air can also symbolize spirit as well as fire in the tarot, but it's communication, it's intellect, it's being analytical, and so you have this gusto, or this desire to really maybe bring forth further clarity and organization in your life, further structure, but still with a sense of adventure, sense of gusto and passion. So this is really, really good. I can really tell that this is going to be life-changing for most, if we utilize it in the right way, which I'm sure, I have faith that most of us will. So,
Absolutely. And it's so beautiful. I love listening to what you were saying, because at the time of the new moon, I happened to be up doing some work. Got inspired. I was working on an article, and
totally.
a lot of the sort of download that I got was that it's a lot about communication, actually, that it's about listening to our heart's communication. That it's not always these external messages of what we should be doing or certain pressures, but that there's like kind of this more subtle and gentle communication that comes from our heart, that comes from spirit, that comes from like a deeper knowing. And that a lot of like, well, what does that really mean? Follow our hearts. Like, we sort of have to listen first. There's an element of communication, of like being in communication with spirit and with our own self. And so when listening to you say that about the swords and air and communication, it was like, yes, that is so beautiful, because we need that to really even know what the fire is or where it's heading or what we're going to do with it. Like, it can feel like go, 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 and we can just go, just move. I love what you said about dancing, moving the energy. That's all like very leonine and like good for the Leo season. But it is that time of tapping in and communicating that allows us to use the fire in a direction, and like, you know, that we're not
With
just like,
intention.
yeah,
Using the fire with intention and not just burning everything in your sight, but also, you know, when I read clients and I see an excessive amount of fire energy, I tell them it's very imperative that you learn how to ground some of this energy or center it, because you can burn yourself out too, you know, or especially burn your mind out. We got to look at it on, you know, the pros and the cons. So it's amazing if you get a lot done mentally with this extra gusto and added energy. But if you're not cautious, you might pile on too much. You might, you know, do the most. And it's like, you'll come to a point where you're like, what the hell did I do? Why did I just sign up for 20 clients in a day? Like, what am I doing? You know? So personal boundaries is important on the mental and soulful level. And just, you know, really getting rid of limitations, excuse me, not limitations, yeah, they're limitations, but distractions and things that are going to stop you from really allowing your spirit to be the authentic lead, you know, the main voice of your life, and your GPS,
yes,
allowing your GPS to shine, you know?
yes, absolutely. And you know, that Venus Saturn opposition, it's so helpful that you brought up boundaries, because really Saturn doesn't want to limit us for the sake of limitation. Saturn wants us to have boundaries. Saturn wants us to have a container so that the magic can flow. And so Saturn is in a lot of ways the most magical planet, because
Wow.
you know, in a sense, because it's like we need that grounding and we need the structure. We can have so much magic and so much power, but if we don't have like, if we're never getting enough sleep, or we never make a dentist appointment, or we don't know where any of our money is, or right, it's like we will just be
All over
scattered.
the place, right?
And so Saturn kind of sometimes in ways that we're like, this isn't fun, or like this isn't shiny, or like I want to just
Is
play.
that parent, is that disciplinary parent that we, you know, want to rebel against, but at the same time, in retrospect, when you're older, you can appreciate the lessons, you know, that that particular aspect brought to you.
Totally. And so Venus is so much about the heart and connection, and you know, Leo is so much about the heart and connection. And so we can kind of look at that Saturn influence as, you know, wanting to help us, wanting to access that in a more sustainable way, which is like
Right.
really so much in line with what you've been saying. But that was such a good way of just of talking about how to see that aspect productively, I think. And yeah, I think it's an exciting week, and we're definitely entering a life-changing season. This is the very beginning of a really life-changing season, so it's exciting. I
Wow.
loved seeing the cards in here. They're so useful. They're so relevant for me personally.
I
I,
love it. I love it. It's just like I never know what's gonna happen when I pull them up, and I'm like swords, ooh, and then ooh, like, and then the information starts flowing in. So it's just really neat to see what the spirits have to say about that, or what kind of symbology plays into comes into play. And it's always usually in alignment, which I love. And I love this marriage that we have going on here. It's so beneficial.
totally. I know. I feel like it is. I really hope that you know, is of service, is useful to you in your week. You know, that it serves you to listen to your intuition, to be your
Ashe.
highest self. And we're really excited because we'll be back with you next week, and we'll be with you for
Absolutely.
this season. Yeah, we'll be back with you next week with more. Did you have any other things
You
to say?
can, why don't you mention your outlets, how we can get in contact with you if you want to book a session with you, all that.
See, it's so good you're here because I never do that. If you've ever watched
Okay,
any of
girl.
my videos, you've never heard me say that before. It's a good thing to say. You can find me on my website, which is thevoluptuouswitch.com. You can follow me on Instagram at the Voluptuous Witch, and I post daily Astro updates. And I also make some horoscope videos by sign that will also be up for us for the
Which
eclipse.
is so helpful. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for all the time and energy you put in it. And love. Oh my God, yes. So
And
much love.
thank you. Yeah, and I love it. I love doing it, so I'm excited. So yeah, that's mainly where you can find me. I have a Facebook, the Voluptuous Witch Facebook. And where can we find you, Tatiana?
You can find me on my website, myurbanillumination.com. If you want to book a session, you can click on the Work With Me tab. Also, you can follow me for tarot meditation updates on the daily, tarot scopes on the monthly, tarot videos on my Instagram, Twitter pages. That's Tatiana Tarot, and also on my YouTube and Facebook page, Tatiana Tarot. So it's simple, it's all the same thing. My website's the only one that's called something else. But we're just so stoked to share this with you. It's the first video of many to come. And like, you know, Emily said, I just hope that this provides a great service to you and that you carry this and may it enhance your life in whatever way it's going to enhance your life.
Yes. Yes. Happy new moon.
Happy new moon.
Wish you the most beautiful week.
Okay, peace, guys.
Bye.
Bye.